So, in the wake of the leaked Supreme Court draft opinion, which is not final, we're told by the Justice of the Supreme Court, John Roberts, Democrats vowed to fight for abortion access. But as expected, today's effort to codify Roe v. Wade has failed. So, what does that mean for their fight now? Joining me now is Democratic Senator Catherine Cortez Masto of Nevada. She actually co-sponsored the bill that was, in fact, defeated today, and she is running for re-election. Senator, thank you for joining me tonight. It's important to hear your voice in particular on this issue. You know, Senator, one of the things that people have been talking about is this word symbolism and the idea of, was this a symbolic vote that was an exercise in futility? You say no. It was about actually trying to codify Roe v. Wade and trying to get those votes. How do you see it tonight?
Well, I think it's the same way. Listen, Laura, I think we all agree in this sense that the individuals who voted for that legislation tonight it's about women's rights. It's about giving women and trusting women in this country to make these decisions and pro-choice decisions that we know for the last 50 years women have been living with when it comes to their reproductive freedom rights. That's what this is about. So it's really a clear distinction of who's going to stand for women's rights and stand up for women and who isn't. And that's really what's at stake right now. And I know in my race in Nevada, I come from a state that in the 90s codified Roe versus Wade. And we have in that vote alone, almost 2/3 of the voters supported Roe versus Wade, and they still do. And this is crosses party lines from Republicans, Democrats, and independents in my state. So this is about trusting women and making sure we're not taking away women's rights when it comes to their health care. And unfortunately, we have seen Mitch McConnell and far right extreme Republicans don't trust women and they want to take away their rights.
Senator, are you concerned, speaking of the idea of bipartisanship, are you concerned that maybe the vote, by fact that it was 49-51, with, in fact, Senator Manchin joining with Republicans, does this give some fodder and ammunition for the Republican Party to say, hey, not only did it failed on a bipartisan basis, undermining what you're saying? What's the retort to the notion that this is not to be considered a bipartisan defeat?
No, this is clearly what we have happening here. And we've seen it from Mitch McConnell, who's been very clear about this, and our previously defeated president. This idea that they need to take away women's right to choose. When a majority of this country, I know in my state, we have protected women's rights. So what's at stake here is electing candidates and individuals who are going to protect a woman's right to choose. And it shows that this election is so important. Listen, I have an opponent who's running against me. I have no doubt would take away a woman's right to choose, would actually support Mitch McConnell's decision to pass some sort of federal legislation that would ban a women's right to choose and further restrict women's reproductive health care in this country. There's no doubt about it. So elections matter. And at this juncture, we need to make sure we are electing candidates that respect women in this country.
It's interesting, Senator, about that notion of Senator Mitch McConnell. He did try to walk back, as you know, a little bit of that notion of talking about a nationwide abortion ban, which would make sense given the fact that, well, if the Alito opinion is to be believed, it's trying to return to the states the ability to have members of the electorate actually weigh in on this. And having a nationwide ban would really remove that particular premise of that opinion if it's to be believed. Do you see that statement of Mitch McConnell as him saying the quiet part out loud in a way that gives some leverage to those seeking re-election or Democrats in general to say, hold on, he has just said what he would intend to do. Believe him the first time.
Well, believe him the first time and look at what's happening across the country. If the Supreme Court's draft opinion becomes the law, there are already 18 states that have passed trigger laws that would outlaw abortion. And there's no doubt over half the states would follow and further restrict abortion in this country. And that's just getting ready. Those states are really following suit of the Supreme Court. Mitch made it very clear that he would really further follow, and pass some sort of federal ban restricting women. I mean, I've got my colleagues are already in a back room somewhere, Republican colleagues that are looking at how to restrict abortion in this country in the hopes that the Supreme Court will overturn Roe versus Wade. That's why elections matter. That's why it is important for so many people to come out and stand up for women and women's rights and our right to choose in this country. Again, it goes back to, why don't we trust women to make this decision? Why doesn't Mitch McConnell trust women to make this decision on their own?
Well, Senator, I know you appreciate the legality issues that are at stake here as well, given your background on these notions. And I know you've expressed concerns about data privacy, or how one, if it were to be overturned, how would one have their medical health privacy and their data privacy actually maintained and preserved? Is that something to consider going forward?
Well, here's a couple of things that I absolutely know. If this is overturned, we already have a Texas law that pits neighbors against one another, and turns them into bounty hunters to really focus on those individuals that they think are violating women's rights. Again, this is an issue that will just take it to the next level. Think about this: everybody that has a phone can be tracked, geolocation, and that information is tracked, and where you go can be tracked and actually is collected and can be used to determine where you are and if you are seeking health care or not. I mean, it goes one step further, and these are things that we should be thinking about, because if we already have bounty hunter laws in this country because of what Texas has done and the Supreme Court refused to strike it down, we're going to get even further down the road here. And again, at the end of the day, this is about a woman's right to choose. Why are we taking away the rights of Americans and individuals in this country, particularly for women, when it comes to their reproductive freedom rights?
Senator Catherine Cortez Masto, thank you so much.
Thank you.